This is the JWN podcast. Aaron Utterback is a musician who grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, along with his lifelong friends and bandmates that go by the name of Human Resources. When they decided to relocate to Charleston, South Carolina, they brought with them their signature indie electro-pop sound and quickly fit right into the music scene. Aaron's also played bass with bands like Brave Baby and has collaborated with many artists as a session and gig player. We had a great in-depth conversation about music, the current state of the scene, and what it's like living as a working musician and creative in 2021. Here's my conversation with Aaron Utterback.
I had no idea of the expectation when you put me in your good vibration. These plastic walls won't prove I'm letting go when I can't break free from your control.
I love that you're working in Logic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is Logic feels to me like the original GarageBand.
Yeah.
When a GarageBand first came out, it had a lot more going on than what it is now.
Yeah, I think they kind of like took the make it compatible with the phone route. And I tried to do it on my phone recently and I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I started making music on like the old plastic, I say old now, but like the OG plastic MacBooks. Mm-hmm. Matt Zutel and I used to do like these like ridiculous like T-Pain covers in our houses because we were like, oh my God, this thing has auto-tune on it. We gotta play Bartender by T-Pain and see if we can make it sound the same. And it didn't, but somewhere out there there's a recording of Matt Zutel doing a start to finish rendition of Buy You a Drink.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That'll come up like later on in his life.
Yeah.
He'll be like this, you know, whatever part of his ventures in life, whether it's being a drummer, being an audio engineer or a music producer, or whatever one, all of a sudden he's going to become like this like mogul, and then someone's going to pull out this T-Pain thing. Like, remember when you did this?
Yeah.
Like, you know.
It was like, I still remember too, weirdly, we put the laptop on top of my dresser in my bedroom, and he just sang into like the microphone on the laptop. We didn't have any mics, no interface, no nothing. I think we just like probably stole the instrumental track somewhere, and we're like, let's put auto-tune on Matt's voice and sing T-Pain songs. And that's what we did when we were in like 10th grade.
My goodness. You guys I keep forgetting that you guys are so young. Like, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as like, you guys have done so much at such a, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For you, it probably doesn't feel like you're young, because I remember how much slower time feels when you're in your 20s, right?
I just turned 30.
You just turned 30. Yeah. So that whole period, it doesn't feel like, doesn't feel like you've done so much when you're that age until you look back and you're like, holy cow. Like, you guys have done a ton of,
for sure,
as human resources. And then individually, all of you guys are doing like all these other cool things. I mean, you have your own other side gig that pays the bills. All those other guys have, Dries is like total videographer, photographer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's in like Panama or something right now doing videography for somebody.
That's just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty insane. I'm going to jump around a lot.
That's okay.
Because just speaking of like video, like because you have an awesome videographer, your videos are just amazing. But you guys dropped that video at the beginning of 2020, which was like, oh, this is what the rest of your year is going to be like. People strap in.
Oh, the TV one? Yeah. Paul actually made that one.
Did he? Okay. So Dries was just kind of part of the,
I don't know that Dries really did. I don't want to throw him under the bus if I'm wrong, but I don't think he did anything on that one, honestly. And it was kind of my favorite music video ever that we did, because I think Paul, he actually worked on it. Coleman Sawyer helped him build that set from Rare Creatures, I remember. And he just did that whole thing. Like, I wasn't there. None of us were. So it was a real treat for me to just like one day, it took him forever, I remember. I think
Was it built in like a container? Well, like,
no, they went out somewhere deep in Mount Pleasant and they built this like 3/4 of a room and actually burned it down and filmed it and did that whole thing that they did in that production. And
wait, that was real fire?
yeah, it was real fire.
I thought that was like After Effects, like
No.
digitally added afterwards. Because you guys are holding drinks that are on fire and stuff. I'm like, okay, so they must have digitally added that.
I think he added it to the drinks, but the room burning down is a real fire. They
Holy cow.
they lit it on fire and caught it and
I'm gonna
threw gasoline all over. And
I'm gonna link that video in the show like description so people can go see it, because we're talking about it right now. And if you haven't seen it, it's awesome, but it's eerie. It's one of those things where when you look back on it, like with hindsight, and you're like, I felt this way at other points in my life when there's pivotal, like major things that happen. And I feel like artists kind of saw it coming in some way. I feel like, I don't know if that's true or not, if they kind of had this premonition or not, whatever you believe, great. But the fact is that video, and it's probably not the intention, but the feeling of watching that video now of like, kind of like the course of a life, of people just kind of watching, it's the TV's the center, and it's the TV is replaying their life. So it's almost like
you're like stuck.
It's kind of like stuck looking at your cell phone and social media and like all that stuff. But it's also, you're stuck in this one place with this small, in the video.
All of your experiences are happening within this same sphere.
And it's all like
that is eerie.
Televised. But it's also the isolation factor of it being in this one room, being like home on your couch for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Like the way it's captured. It's pretty creepy. Did you ever think about that? Like after the fact, like that's really odd that this video kind of fits really well.
I haven't, honestly. And I'm kind of detached from that video in a lot of ways. 'Cause like I was saying, I mean, Paul just sort of ran with that concept. Like I wasn't at the shoot or anything. And he kind of just like put it on our group chat and was like, hey, I made this thing for the song.
And it's amazing.
And that's it. And sent us a Venmo request for all the supplies that he burned down.
Yeah.
And
Is that how music videos are made?
I guess so. I mean, if you're in the band with the person who makes them, he was like, yeah, so I went to Lowe's and I spent, however many hundreds of dollars on supplies and built this room and burned it down for a video. And
that's unbelievable.
Here it is. So, and it was unbelievable. But it was hard to like, it wasn't that it wasn't personal, but it just wasn't a group effort. But
right.
That, I like it when things happen that way, because everybody in their own regard is creative and busy. So it's like, someone wants to take the initiative and bring something to the table, then it's just like the more the merrier.
And I think in that instance, especially working in the confines of an actual band, and you guys are an actual band. You guys all grew up to each other. You all know each other, like you're brothers. You know what I'm saying? Like you're basic. You're not actual brothers. I'm saying that obviously, but you guys you're all part of each other's lives. And something like that video is kind of cool to have that singular focus, because at the end of the day, the soundtrack and everything, the inspiration does come from the band.
Right.
So it's still a band thing, but it would be like if you hired a director who wrote and had a concept and just used your song
for sure
and whatnot. But so it's a similar thing, except it's just a guy in your band.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's definitely like a blessing that we don't take for granted, that we have all of the content creation within the band. The writing, I say content, I kind of hate that word because it's like make art, not content. You don't want to be that guy. But with Matt doing the recording, Dries doing videography, Paul doing videography, I do graphic design, write songs for the band and for other people as well. It's kind of like this very fruitful environment of creativity and creation, and like the end product arrives, I think, a little more easily for us than other people, because you don't have to seek out, you don't have to vet a videographer, you don't have to explain your idea. We all know each other, we all know what we like collectively, so it's like we can arrive at a complete product, if you want to call it a product, pretty quickly.
Right.
In that regard.
The turnaround is like
much faster. There's not a lot of hoops of like, we worked with this artist to do our album cover and they didn't really get our vision. You don't
Yeah.
have to go through that process. It's just like,
But I like on the flip side that you guys will step out and go to like LA to record some stuff.
yeah,
Just to kind of like not get so insulated.
for sure.
I don't know if that was the idea or if you just really wanted an excuse to go to LA and hang out with some cool people. I don't know what the actual driving force behind that is, but
Little of both.
it appears like it's like, hey, let's expand our horizons and keep growing,
Yeah, it's kind of a thing for us where like you're exactly right, where we sit in the studio at Coast all the time. It's a great sound. It sounds good even.
Today is the first time it's not a LaCroix.
There you go.
It's a Creature Comforts Brewing Company.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah,
But yeah. Okay. So you're at Coast recording.
I mean, we live in this, especially during the pandemic. I mean, we've been out there before, but we live in this little bunker with no windows at Coast, and we make music and demos and all of that stuff, and it all comes together. And you kind of hit a point where you're just like, I just want to go to California and like work with a producer, someone who's going to tell us if what we're doing sucks. It's not even that hard of a gig for him. Honestly, he's got great gear.
Yeah.
But we just need to go somewhere else because, lunch break at Royal American, going back and forth. Like I love all those places, but you can't get stuck. And it's like, you go somewhere different, you get off the plane, the air smells different, right away. And you're just a totally different person, especially in California, because it's got that intoxicating, there's a reason there's all those songs about it. It's like, it's a different place. And you get out there and it's the same guys, but now we're staying in an Airbnb. We're recording in a different studio. We purposefully don't take any of our gear except for like maybe a few small, drum machines or whatever, so that the sounds are totally unique. And you end up with like a unique inspiration. So like this past time we went there, we sent demos. We were planning on working on 2 songs. We got there. We're checking levels like the first 45 minutes within getting there. He's just like, play something so I can get everything dialed in. And that little jam that we did.
hit record.
Yeah. And we ended up making that into a song and scrapping the other one we were working on. And that song is now going to be the title track on the album. And it's influenced the art and all the design that's going to come from it. And that's kind of the same thing that happened last time that we went out there. We didn't really know what to expect that time, but the end product was like what defined the rest of the stuff that we did, which eventually became our last album, Champagne.
Yeah.
We recorded Sylvia out there, which was kind of like the lead single and culmination of like this sound that we'd been chasing for a while. And we just needed that little spice of going somewhere different to get to the result.
It's nice too, because I imagine you guys grew up, you're in the scene together, all your friends are here, all of that stuff you said, which is amazing. It's all extremely valuable. But yeah, when you walk out, go someplace else, and now all your little inside jokes and your little things, they don't apply. So now you kind of have to go like, all right, so how's the rest of the world outside of our bubble going to perceive us?
Yeah.
So it's an amazing self-awareness that you guys have about this.
Well, it is self-aware, but I won't take all the credit for it because there's definitely, I don't want to say we're misunderstood in Charleston, but for years and years, like, you look at our Spotify data, Charleston's not in the top 10 cities that we get listened to. We actually, this happens a lot, but we played in Athens just before the pandemic, and this big group of girls came up to us after the show, and they're like, we can't believe that you played here. You came all the way from California to play here. We're like, we drove like 3.5 hours, we're from Charleston. And they were just like, oh, we didn't look. We just assumed
that the sound
that was the sound was like, it had to be from the West Coast. And we were like, well, that's flattering. And we did record out there, but
yeah,
no, I mean, we're from not that far away. So
yeah, but you guys there's still like a beachy Charleston underlying thing that goes on there that I love. But yeah, you guys definitely are different, but it still fits in. Like it melds in. Like you guys can play on a set with any band here, and it works. And you guys also play like you played in Brave Baby, which is a totally different, and not totally different sound, but different enough. You know what I'm saying? And then Drees is in Susto, which is completely different sound, but still has some of the same elements. Yeah. So it's weird that like you guys might be a more focused electro-pop indie rock band. I don't even know if that's the proper. Did I leave out a word?
Yeah, I don't really know what to say either. So
exactly, but you're
Pop.
just you're a modern rock band.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like it's good stuff. It's and it gets the attention of people because, I mean, seeing you guys live, because of the technical skill involved in your band outside of just being musicians and songwriters and things like that, you guys are all like really good craftspeople. As far as Matt Zutel is one of the best sound men I've ever witnessed, and he's playing drums.
That's a little much. I don't know.
You don't think so?
I'm just kidding.
I think live sound.
Yeah, he's great.
When he gets comfortable in a room like Royal American and like the outside deck of the Poorhouse, I've never seen a show sound like when I saw who did I go see there? I mean, there's been a bunch that have gone there, but when he's running the sound,
it's soaring in there.
You feel everything like 10 times more. It's almost like listening to music, when you're on an edible compared to sober.
He's really passionate about it too.
He's so good at that.
And I don't want to like be the sadist in this conversation, but like the reality is a lot of venues you go to where they have a house sound guy, not all, but a lot. It's like, I'm the jaded old guy who didn't make it. I don't really give a shit how good your band sounds or not. I'm just here to get my paycheck and bounce at the end of the night. And that happens a lot, which is why obviously like as bands get bigger, they get their own sound person who knows the songs, who's passionate and is brought in as part of the team and sees like a great result as something that's valuable to them, which is something that does get lost along the way, especially when you run through like the Factory in like New York where you'll play a show and they're all showcases, 10 people, 10 bands, everybody has a 30-minute set.
Right.
Everyone plays off the back line, basically starts with the same mix. Maybe by the fourth song,
it starts to sound
pretty good. And then 2 songs later, you're gone, But
you guys have, but besides just that, but like your tone, Drees' tone, like the sound you're going to get when I go see you guys play, and then visually you have visuals going on. You have projectors, lights, things, whatever. You'll bring your own visuals to the show as well. You guys take it to another level. So it's hard not to take notice when when someone sees you guys live for the first time and they're like, "Wait, what is that?"
For sure.
What's going on here?
It's a decided. I mean, obviously, it's a move. It's like a few years ago, Matt and I, we had just moved to Charleston, or Matt had been here for a while, but we came down. We were switching up our dynamic as a band, like kind of going for a new sound. And we were both reading at the same time. David Byrne had just put out this book, How Music Works.
Yeah. Yep.
And he has that section or chapter, few collection of chapters where he talks about how to cause a scene. And he's like, he talks about the influence of African music and dance music on all the different types of music and how that plays in with the Talking Heads and yada, yada. But then he says, when we started playing at CBGB, it was like, how do we get people to remember us? You know, how do we jump off the page? Like the songs are going to be great, but the sound might be hit or miss night for night. What do? We have the showmanship that brings it to the next level.
Right.
And we just thought, how do we apply that in a modern sense? Like, how do we play at Royal and are a band where everybody in there is, even if they don't like it, they're like, what is going on right now?
Well, you guys are the band that you'd expect to see at a festival. Like you'd expect to see you guys playing with, up against like a Tame Impala or something like that, or one of those type of bands that are like totally, it translates into a giant atmosphere. And to see that juxtaposed into a dive bar,
a little box,
and you're getting that you're getting the experience of what you would hear and feel and see, but it's in a, you look around, you're like, there's, it's a dive bar, but it's, I'm total. I think a lot of the musicians here, a lot of the other the people that are like nerds, like me, a little bit nerdier, are become instantly like, this is so cool. Like we're extremely, we kind of get it. But then, for you to see like a group of girls in Georgia come running up to you, like that's the way it should be. And it probably will be at some point with you guys.
Yeah.
You guys are like one more, I should say, not one lucky break, one more lucky break
Yeah.
from like just blowing up ridiculously, because you had that was a Nissan commercial.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
our pandemic lifeline, our pandemic financial lifeline.
Well, but here, all right. So we can get into this conversation a little bit.
Sure.
Simply because when I was coming up, I came from like a much more. There was a lot more rules in the underground scene when I was younger, when I playing music actively, and something like that would have been the end of your career. You wouldn't be able to play in a Royal American.
You're not cool anymore if you do that.
Yeah, exactly. But now it seems like the generation that you're a part of, the attitude is like, dude, I should be getting paid for my work, and if it's going to be used commercially for something like that, but it's you're okay. It's not like they're selling a car. We all need car. We live in an area. If you don't have a car, you're in trouble. You know what I'm saying? You need a car.
Yeah.
So it's not like this awful thing. It's not like they're trying to sell like the end of life on Earth or something like that. It's just like it's a mode of transportation. It's a necessity at this point. So, but the attitude is so different. And I don't discount it. I'm like, yeah, it got you through the pandemic. You just said it. Like that was our pandemic payday. Yeah,
we got to go to California and record an album during the pandemic. Yeah, with the money that we got from that commercial.
But here's the flip side to that. Not even the flip side. It's just the same side probably. Like even on that video, I see comments like, "Is this the band that's in that Nissan commercial?"
Yeah,
like, someone commented that. And I was like, yeah, that's how you get exposure now, because there's no radio traditionally.
Yeah,
like you have to get on it. It's gotten so weird in like the minutia of getting exposure, like getting on a Spotify playlist, but then you got to try to get on an Apple Music playlist, and then you look in like around the globe, there's all these other music services that you got to try to like focus. It's a little bit hectic now to try to promote your song. So when you get somebody paying, and they're paying you, and they're promoting your music.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. And that's not even the worst one, honestly, the Nissan commercial. But we have a publisher who, when we were just getting started, focused on like in-store placements. So we were on like
Target.
Even 5-6 years ago, like using Spotify in your business was not like a ubiquitous thing. Now there is a Spotify business. Most businesses just plug in an iPhone and rip their playlist it's actually really cool, because a lot of times it'll be something where, especially if it's a small business, the owner will just like make their own playlist and they play whatever they want. But at the time, there was like all those services like Muzak and whatever the other ones were. Everybody had a high school job where they remember like flipping on that box and heard the same 20 songs for 6 months, and then the programming would flip and you get a new set. And we were somehow sucked up into that machine. And one of our songs has this like thread of people who work at JWN Fabric across the country.
Oh my goodness.
And somebody gets on there and they're like, I work at JWN's in Louisville, Kentucky, and I love this song. I had to look it up. And somehow this became like a 9 to 15 comment section for people who work at JWN's all across the country. It was a micro JWN Fabric employee social network.
Now, was the general consensus that they wanted you to just stop?
No,
because they couldn't stand hearing the same songs all over again, or were they fans?
They were fans.
That's awesome.
And yeah, for sure. Because if it was me, I would have been like, fuck this band. Like, I'm sick of this song. It's stupid synth. Every time I hear it, I want to quit. Yeah, the retail job I worked when I was playing in a band. Yeah.
It was kind of like Frank Sinatra 24/7 until even at Christmas, it just became like that Rat Pack, like Christmas music in that store all the time, to the point, like when I hear those songs, there's like a little chill. Oh yeah. You get a little bit of reaction, like, ooh, gotta go to work.
Yeah. My girlfriend used to work at Monza. I actually met her because Dries, this is a whole nother part of our story. Like, he was making pizza at Monza when we first moved to Charleston. That's where Pizza Dreams, the name for our EP, came from. And I met my girlfriend there through him, and they both, and then collectively, like the larger staff, which we would end up hanging out with, all just despised Lovely Day by Bill Withers. which is a fantastic song, but that long that just goes on, that was just their fingernails on a chalkboard. So they would all just be like, anytime you'd hear it out in public, you could just see them all cringe and be like, oh, this is that. You know, it's like right up there with the sound of the ticket counter or the ticket printer at your job during a rush, just being like, these are sounds that I never want to hear.
Oh, I this past weekend, I was in Myrtle Beach. It was the Myrtle Beach Marathon was this past weekend. And I was walking around Broadway at the beach with my sister-in-law. And it was early morning, so there wasn't a lot of people yet. But the stores are all just started opening up. But all those little booths are on the boardwalk. And we identified the absolute worst job in America. There was a baby shark booth, right? Like, and they're selling baby shark merchandise, which like that thing hit what 2-3 years ago? I don't even know at this point. But it's playing that song on a loop, and there's just a girl sitting there who has to sit there listening to Baby Shark do all day long. And we're like, oh, that's the worst job.
She might have some trauma because of that later in her life. I could imagine, like, be triggered like definitely like a PTSD if it comes on. You know?
Oh yeah.
I think of the like Apocalypse Now, like the flashbacks of like people in tank tops walking down the beach or walking down the boardwalk, like neon tank tops, and Baby Shark plays in the background, and she wakes up in a cold sweat, you know?
Oh yeah. She goes off on a killing spree and people don't understand why.
Yeah.
And she's just murdering people who work at aquariums because they have sharks and, you know, whatever.
Yeah. Then they search her house and she has plush baby sharks and on every surface, you know.
Yes, she had been pilfering every day for 20 years of working in the baby shark booth. She'd been taking home a baby shark with her, and then her whole life is consumed by sharks.
Hopefully, she's killing it. I don't know.
Yeah. Luckily, upon closer inspection, she had AirPods in, so I think she had a way to deal with it. You know, but still, that has the potential to be one of the most devastating jobs in the world.
It sounds pretty terrible.
Coal miner where you could get crushed, or Myrtle Beach boardwalk baby shark 24/7. I don't know.
I can't believe that job exists, actually, but you know, that's I empathize.
Tell me a little bit about your musical beginnings. Like, did you guys start playing instruments? Like, I remember being young and all the guys in the band I was in, it was like friends, and it was like, well, this guy took guitar lessons, so he's going to be the guitarist, and then this other guy has a drum set, so he's going to become the drummer. The other person had to play bass simply because there was no one else to play bass. And you know what I'm saying? Like that felt like the way that instruments were assigned as a kid when I was a kid. And it feels like you guys might have something similar.
Well, I'll tell you a super unique story that you've never heard before from any musician ever, that my mom forced me to play piano lessons. I did take piano lessons. I did that, and then I hated it. And then I found my way to the guitar. Said no musician ever, right? Like, I'm learning like the Ladybug Boogie and like a reduced version of, you know, For Elise. And I was like, this is the worst. I want to be playing baseball. This is when I'm like 7 years old or whatever. Or rollerblading with my friends. And that was piano lessons for a while. And then my dad got a guitar, and he had delusions of grandeur that he was going to play guitar. And as soon as that came into the house, I was like, that's not yours anymore. That's mine.
Yeah.
And that's the guitar that's here today. It's the same one that I stole from my dad when I was like in 7th grade. And it's followed me ever since. And I just got way better than him. He was learning, and I was way better, way faster.
Yeah, you had time.
I claimed it.
You had time to learn. Yeah. He probably had, work.
Yeah.
Raising kids.
He had to provide for me and, make sure there was food on the table, and I was learning Green Day songs in my bedroom.
But you know how happy he must be that he got that guitar and that you have it right now?
I think they're getting there. I think for a while they were like, maybe we aren't so happy he's got that guitar because what are they doing?
It's a scary future to look at because there's such a... Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, like, mom and dad, it's very legitimizing. Oh, your song's in a commercial. They made it. Like, now it's cool that they, that kind of thing. Like, they went and we played a big show where we opened for Bleachers, which is,
they're
Jack
huge.
Antonoff. Yeah, we opened for them at the Georgia Theater, and it was sold out. And they came to that show and are like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't up until this point, maybe, but now we get it. They were always supportive, but there was just like a make sure you're learning how to do something else too, you know, kind of vibe, which is every parent ever. But they've always been supportive and let us kind of do our thing and be loud. And but we did start playing really young, and Dries actually bought me my first bass guitar.
Really?
For my birthday. Yeah, in probably 7.
That's like the sweetest thing ever.
He was playing guitar and he was just like,
I need a bass player.
yeah, you know, we were hanging out in middle school. So we met because we all went to Catholic school in Charlotte.
Mhm.
And the way that works is like there's a bunch of elementary schools and they all feed together for middle school and then they all feed together for high school. And, you know, our last names, my last name is Utterback, starts UT, and he's VA. So we were right next to each other in the alphabet, which meant in 6th grade, we're next to each other in the assignment process. It's like some Harry Potter sorting hat thing, you know? And then from that point on, we were in the same groups of any like global event in high school, global, like where the whole school had to come together. We had to sit next to each other. And that led to, you know, typical middle school hijinks, which was then I'm playing guitar, playing Weezer songs in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
We had a friend who was a good drummer, and they were like, we need a bass player. And they got me the 15-watt Fender amp, like the starter kit, you know, that you buy at Guitar Center. They still have that. They still sell that thing. And they bought me that, and we would play like, I think our first show ever.
Yeah, but did you have to pull out Longview?
Oh, yeah.
I see that you were the rock star if you could play that bass line as a young age.
I had it. I actually took to the bass pretty quickly, which I know most people are like, oh, I have to be the guy who plays the bass, but I was into it.
If I had rhythm, I would love to be a bass player these days. I think it's such an understated, amazing thing that like makes music.
It's on the come up now too, harder than it ever has, because I think like R&B, especially with like the rise of hip hop, and the rise of hip hop like over the past, 15, 20 years now at this point, like has pulled funk and R&B and jazz into the mainstream. Like the bass lines on Say It Ain't So versus the bass line on Come Down by Anderson .Paak, like night and day. But now the bass is becoming this like, it's not the butt of the joke anymore. It's kind of like the coolest part of the music. Everybody knows the bass line of if it's a song that has like a bass line that's out front, that's what people are paying attention to now. Drums and bass, where back in the day it was guitar and vocals. So it's like, that shift has definitely happened. And like, you'll hear so many songs even now, like Don't Start Now, the Dua Lipa song that was a huge hit. It's like bass and drums in the verse. That's it. I don't even know if there might be a guitar in the chorus of that song playing some like chunky funk chords, but the way that the landscape of music has developed is like, it's put the bass at the forefront. So I kind of was like an early investor, and now I'm cashing in.
Now you're reaping the
I'm cashing in the cool card.
Here's the other thing: any rhythm section player will never, ever, ever go without work. If that's like your profession, if you play drums or bass, you will always have your choice of band to play with.
Yeah,
it's just
definitely especially here in town. I mean, there's not that many, so I scoop up quite a few gigs. And there's some amazing bass players in town who...
Brett Nash.
I played with Brett Nash last night, actually. We had a rehearsal for Key and Masters. We're playing at the Friendly Neighborhood Fest with there. Little Stranger. That's my plug.
Heck yeah. Well, then you have another show at Lo-Fi coming up too.
We do, yeah, with Human Resources.
With Human Resources and...
Babe Club.
Persona
Ave, yep. And Jamie Gray, who is the front woman of Crybaby.
Dude, there's so many good shows coming up this month that I'm like, we're recording this on a Wednesday, and yesterday the Royal American dropped like, oh, we're having our first show back, and it sold out like instantly.
It's Justin, right?
With Justin and Jordan, and
that's right, yeah.
So, like, I'm so excited for what's going on, but you're involved in half of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's everybody knew it was going to happen. The pendulum always swings back. It was pent up. People are vaccinated. Yeah, like,
let's do this.
It's time. Let's go. So if you're if you're ready to go back out, like the stuff is coming back. So it's definitely exciting. It's hectic, but it's an exciting time.
It's an exciting time. I just wonder if we're
Jumping the gun.
truly ready for it. You know, there's all of this pent up anxiety, and I don't think for myself personally that I've fully dealt with it all. So when I do these things, it almost feels when I do things like I just told you, I was at a race, and it's kind of like it's not fully back to normal. It's as close as you can get before being normal again. And it's kind of because it's not like even these shows that they're going on now, there's still limited capacity. There's still rules in place.
Right.
And that little reminder is still weighing on me.
Yeah.
Those little reminders of that, hey, we're not done with this yet. We're still going through this. We're just trying to make it work now.
I think one of the best things about that, though, not the best things about that, because that it sucks. Everything about the pandemic sucked, and not getting to play shows is way down on the totem pole of things that sucked about it. So
yeah,
you know, you have to keep that perspective. Like,
I don't know, man. I might disagree with you on that.
As opposed to like, because loss of life and that type of thing.
Yes,
you know?
But the quality of life while you're alive,
true,
needs to be, enjoyable. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't discount the value of the things that we do to make our lives enjoyable and connect us to each other. Yes, you're right. It's more important to worry about saving people's lives and doing the right thing. But also, what are the long-term effects of whatever we're going through?
There's a lot of negative ones, but where I was actually kind of going with that was, I think there is a really positive result of, in general. I mean, there's always going to be your weirdo, like fringe, like fuck your mask people, like that have always been out there. But I feel like for the most part, the sentiment that I'm seeing is like people are more respectful of if you're not comfortable yet. So it's like, if you wear the mask to the event and you stand in the back, there's not going to be like a bunch of people turning around and pointing at you like you're a leper. Like it's, you know, like there's more of people have embraced a sentiment of like, just do whatever makes you feel comfortable. In addition to whether it's getting your vaccination or whatever, like if that's what we need collectively to get back to doing the things that we like, people in general seem to just, it's nice to see people just kind of say like, I don't want to wear a mask, but I don't really care if you do, or I'm vaccinated and I feel comfortable, but if you don't,
I'll put my mask on.
Who cares? You know, like I just, whatever we have to do to.
I think you're onto something there.
It's really nice to see people be respectful of, everyone understands that there's going to be anxiety that came from this. And just like not moving on from it too quickly to be like, what's wrong with you? Why do you act like that? You know, and it doesn't seem that people are being like that to me. I mean, it could be a bubble, and probably is, that I live in, but for the most part, it seems to be the case for me.
Well, I think the perception, it's kind of like, I think you're 100% right. And I think the perception is more like a paranoia internally. In other words, being that guy standing at the back of the show with the mask on, nobody's looking at you going like, look at this. Well, there might actually be somebody there, but honestly,
depends on the show, right?
That person was a dick before anyway.
It's like Ted Nugent or something, probably.
Yes. But even then, I bet you there's somebody who's like, I'm a huge Ted Nugent fan, but I'm like compromised and I don't want to take a chance. There's probably a lot of people there
for sure
that feel that way. Even at Trump rallies, there were people with masks on. Just, you had to really search for them.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I'm saying? But what do you call it? I think you're onto something, simply because it is making us more aware in general of being aware of what other people's needs are.
I hope so, at least.
And that is a positive outcome of all of this. It's like we're not just in that, but just in general, in everything, is trying to be more aware that like, hey, we're all going through some shit and people have different needs, and maybe we should just be a little bit more respectful. But what I was saying is, I think that the anxiety comes from that person standing in the back of the room, even though most people are not giving a shit that you're standing with a mask in, they're thinking that everyone that looks at them
Yeah.
is judging them.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing if you're like, if you're overweight, you think everyone's looking at you if you go out for a run. If you're, whatever it is, if you're a new musician, you're playing for the first time, you think every mistake, people are going to harp on it. Meanwhile, no one notices them.
I still think that.
Yeah. And nobody notices them. And a lot of times, like, I love going to see the best of the best musicians and the confidence that they have when there is a flub. It's almost better than if they didn't.
Yeah.
I've
always loved the reactions of other people in the band when there's a flub, like especially
the
if you
smile.
The like, I saw that. I heard it. Maybe they didn't, but I heard it. And that's a fun moment. It's honestly fun to be a part of too. Like if we're playing, whether it's HR or like with Bill Wilson or Kean or anything, and it's like somebody hits a wrong note, and like you kind of maybe look over at somebody and give them like the eyebrow raise, like I heard it, maybe they didn't, but
well, there's something cool about that too, because it brings to mind like the living in the moment aspect of playing live music.
Yeah,
it's almost like a little check. Like, oh, okay, yeah, we're here.
Yeah.
I heard that.
Yeah,
now I'm focusing on what I'm doing.
I don't want it to be me now.
but the people out in the crowd are just having a good time.
Yeah.
The vibe is still very positive.
Yeah, definitely.
Man, that's pretty. That's pretty. So you guys have just been killing it as a band. For you personally, what else have you been doing creatively? I know you're into kind of like web design and things like that. How is that also filling your cup creatively?
I got really lucky. Like when I got out of college and I went to college at Appalachian State University in North Carolina with Dries and Paul, our keyboardist, and Matt for a short period of time, but it was too cold for him. So he came back to Charleston.
Appalachian State was too cold.
Yeah. So I, was fortunate to get a job. Like when I got out of college, we weren't necessarily like, we're going to play music full time. We were doing it for fun. We all lived together. And we want to make it. We still want to make it. We wanted to make it, but it was like, we're moving to a new city. We know we're going to have to bite the bullet and get jobs to like keep the wheels under the bus. And I got to work at a software development agency and make like a salary with benefits and all that. And still it was pretty progressive. It was like a work when you can, as long as you hit your deadlines, like you can do whatever you want. So if you don't want to work on Friday because you have to drive to Atlanta to play a show, so be it. Like work on Sunday night to catch up or whatever. And the work is very stimulating. I mean, it's creative and like it's problem solving, which I like doing in general. And it's got a social aspect to it. You communicate with clients.
Yeah.
As you know. And it just like, especially during the pandemic, I mean, everybody needed a website during the pandemic. So I was actually busy. I was really lucky. And I try to remind myself that all the time. But in addition to that, I mean, I've really been trying to flip the switch on like writing songs, either for people or with other people. I've written a couple songs for Chris Wilcox, our friend who lives in Nashville. Yeah. We actually got to go up there and record one of the ones I'd written with, there's this guy, I don't know how much you know about country. I didn't know this guy was a big deal. Apparently he's a big deal. This guy named Luke Combs.
Oh yeah.
And his band, his backing band was the band that like recorded this song that I wrote for Chris. And that was a big, personal moment of the pandemic. And it was a country song, which is outside of my comfort zone. But, I did go to a college where we swam in the river and drank beer on the riverbank. Yeah. For
you
fun.
Can relate to all that stuff. It's just that you were kind of more into.
It wasn't my personal, scene, but it was around enough to reference it. And then I actually wrote a song that I love and hopefully people will hear sooner than later with Jenna from Babe Club. And it's produced and I think it's like basically done. And I don't know if it'll come out as a Babe Club song or what, but
I don't know. Those two take some time to settle on a recording to release it.
Yeah, they're diligent.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're perfectionists.
Yes. But I mean, the result's always great, so it
Oh,
pays
yeah.
off in the end. But she and I wrote this great song. That was one of my favorite moments of the whole pandemic. Was basically like once it kind of got to the point where you could start to see people again. It wasn't like so taboo, to like as long as you weren't like being crazy, you could. Oh, are you good? You've been keeping it safe. She came over and we just like put these guitar chords on a loop and probably let this loop play for like some just atrocious amount of time, like an hour and a half. It's just going this like 3-chord loop, and just sat on the floor in what was my office and just like wrote the lyrics to this song and put it together. And she kind of just like left at the end of the session. And then like a week later, I guess she had gone to work and showed Corey the recording. This is as he tells it to me. And he liked it when she was gone, and he just like chopped and skewed it and added all the instrumentals and turned it into a thing. And next thing we knew, we had this like basically finished awesome song that we wrote together. So that was a really rewarding and new thing for me, because I've pretty much only, like prior to the pandemic, been the writer for HR, and my sounding board has been HR. I've been a session musician for other people, so you write in a limited regard. Maybe you write a bass line or make a suggestion about a melody, but not like all right, let's sit down with nothing and finish with something for someone other than HR. So that's kind of been my creative outlet, in addition to doing like some graphic design stuff, which I picked up over the pandemic, mostly out of necessity. Like most things in life, it's born from necessity. Like I got tired of having to bother Dries or Paul for really small things. Like maybe they make a flyer or they do something and the date changes, and I have to go back to them and be like, can you update this poster? And then you send it back and they say, oh, it's actually going to be $12 instead of 10. And then you have to just like, there's this endless like lobbing of small requests. And I was like, I just need to learn how to use Photoshop. So when they send me this thing, I can put it in there and I'll answer the email, and then they're done. And that just led to like experimenting with different stuff, as any creative, I think, would. Is like, oh, this is a new medium for me to put the puzzle pieces together in. So I've been doing that for about a year now, and like have started getting work and have.
It's pretty crazy, right?
It's insane how it happens, because it was something that I didn't intend on doing. And then like 2 weeks ago, the guys from Humphreys McGee reached out to me and they were like, we need a poster. And I did it. And they posted it on their page, which is like, they're a huge band, and their bass player, Stasek, and who lives on Isle of Palms. And I've met over the pandemic doing a small like sit-in at a live show with him and Ross Bogan. They do a side project and they needed this flyer. And I was like, man, my sister took me to see these guys at Amos's South End in Charlotte when I was a sophomore in high school, and I had to leave at set break because I had a curfew.
Yeah.
And like, and now they're huge and they sell out Red Rocks for multiple night runs in a row. And I look at their Instagram and it's like my flyer, and I started making graphics.
Right. That's this
9 months ago. So it's like, it really does, like, things just will manifest on their own.
Yep.
Sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes you have to work really, really hard, but every once in a while you'll get really lucky and something like that will happen. So that's what I've been up to like lately. In addition to, we're working on a new record with HR.
And you just put out that covers record too.
Yeah, that was a live set. So it was actually like the album is just the audio from the live video, which is, being
Still
real,
sounds great.
Yeah, it's great. But it's just a way to like.
You guys didn't go in there and like punch anything up, or you didn't like, add anything to it?
No, we didn't add anything. There was a couple places where we punched up vocals because we were in the room together, and the drum bleed was just like so atrocious. And all those 80s songs, like the guys all sing like this, like they all for whatever.
Recruiting.
Yeah, that was the thing at the time, and that's not a comfortable register for anybody in the band. So it's like, you're right on the mic singing this like low octave where I can't like project particularly hard.
So now you got hi-hats coming through and they're hitting with the reverb that might be.
Exactly. And Matt hits hard and he's hitting the crash cymbal, and it's just like you can't even hear the singing. So we did punch up a lot of the like softer vocals for the recording that we put out. But for the most part, it's all live. And that was, of the pandemic and probably of my entire life, like musical career, I would say the most challenging project we've ever done, because it's songs that
They're iconic.
They're iconic, but it was like concept driven as opposed to like, it didn't come from our love of those songs as much as it came from our love of the concept and like
the vibe that those songs, yeah.
And how it fit into like how we saw ourselves and the influences that we draw from. Like, I do love The Cure, but I'm not a Echo and the Bunnymen fanatic.
Right.
You know, I'd never heard that song. Ross was like, you know, we're talking about what the set we wanted to do. And he actually brought the idea to our table. And it came from, we were going to do it on Valentine's Day live at the Poorhouse. That was our thing. We wanted to do the tribute to 80s heartbreak. He knew we were the sad boys, like vibe. And he loves all those big washy synths. So he came to us with that idea and we loved it so much. But then obviously, like everything else, it didn't happen. So we decided to do it as a live stream. And it was just this grueling, like, started at 10 the day before we shot it, ran all the songs the whole day. And they're so nuanced. I mean, those 80s songs, they're not complex in terms of like the technical playing. Like, the parts are easy.
Yeah.
The arrangements aren't particularly hard, except for the Smiths song that we did was, when I hear it in public, I'm still like, get the cold sweats. But they're very precise, like, because they were leaning into the
digital, like, that was the beginning of the grid.
Yeah, it was the grid big time.
Yeah.
So when you go to do that live, you're like, all right, so we got to be to the click, which we do play to the click all the time, but there's triggers and there's delays and things that are set where if you hit the delay pedal a split second late, 20 seconds down the line, the whole thing is completely jacked. So it ended up being this like 48-hour thing where we ran all the songs, went home, slept, came back. Ross's girlfriend Amy did all of our makeup, and we just like plowed through this set, and it was, I've never been so exhausted at the end of a day ever.
I love
it was
the
really
work
rewarding
because it sounds great. It sounds awesome. Are any of those songs going to stay as staples in your live set, you think? Because I'd love to see some Tears for Fears.
Maybe.
You know?
Maybe. We haven't really thought about it yet, you know? Like, we haven't put together our set for our next show.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, because
we could.
That whole genre of music, it was so present when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And my brother was heavily into it, my older brother. But I was of the age like where glam metal took off when I was at 13 years old or so. Like the big bands are like Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses. So it was such a juxtaposition, but all that music was there. And it was, all of like every girlfriend or just the like, they were all into it. And so you're kind of like, yeah, but I like this Poison song, like whatever. But over time, it just, all of a sudden you start to go like, oh my God, these songs were so good. They were so like, there was nothing else like that. It just was such a wonderful,
and it just came in
time period
too.
Just like glam metal.
And it was like this puff of smoke.
It was sincerely just like glam metal. Like it was this thing that blew up, got real huge, and then just kind of just faded off a little bit.
I did see The Cure in Atlanta.
The Cure's been huge all the time.
No? two or 3 years ago. And, I've been really fortunate to see a lot of people play over the years. And Robert Smith was one of the most impressive live vocalists I've ever seen.
Really?
It was better than the recording. And he's, I don't even know how old he is now, 60, late 50s probably. And it was like 108 degrees in Atlanta. And it was just this miserable day. Everyone is dripping sweat.
Everyone's dressed in black with white makeup on.
Yeah. He's just like, he looks like he's melting, because he's got his makeup and his hairspray and he's all long sleeve black t-shirt and everything. Uh-huh. And they had to take like 5 breaks to have the people come out and wipe down their instruments and everything. And they just crushed. Like it was insane. Awesome. And I'm a big fan of The Cure, but I was like, I didn't really know what to expect going into that show. Like, are these guys going to be like, is this going to be a live powerhouse? I don't know. 80s, like that wasn't a connection that I'd ever made. And it was really like,
it's almost better live because that sound, like, just like you guys, that sound kind of
It was built for it. It was built for the amphitheater, and you just don't think about it until you see it.
Because you can feel
happen.
it, you know, this, with that the heavy bass, the synth sound. It has a physical,
definitely
tangible feeling to it.
Yeah. So that was a of all those, that my connection to that music in any way, that was probably the most like significant connection to that I have. But I didn't grow up listening to any of that stuff. You know, like my parents were my dad liked The Who, Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith, you know, like he was that guy. 70s Midwest guy, like liked classic rock. And my mom liked Steely Dan, which is my favorite band ever now.
Really?
Yeah, by far.
You think, really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I know you talked to Brett Nash. I don't know if that came up when you talked to him, but
no, we didn't talk about about Steely Dan.
That's one of the first things that we connected on was, I was like, I just love Steely Dan. He was like, dude, they're great. And we kind of hit it off talking about that. I remember.
I have never taken a deep dive into Steely Dan ever. Other than the radio hits, I've never, and it's not for any other reason than I just never had a reason to. But then every once in a while, I've had bands like that in my lifetime, like that I'll get into late. You know, the band. Yeah, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Because you know, as a kid, it might not hit you, but as an adult, you might. It's kind of like anything. Sometimes in the right time time frame in your life, you get introduced to a band that has been there all along, and all of a sudden you start to dig into it, and you're like, oh, so I feel like now I gotta go check on. I gotta go check on Steely Dan because
it's perfect.
Yeah, I just never really, I never really like took it in.
It's definitely like, you know, there's a nerd element to it for sure. The lyrics are very tongue in cheek, and like, it's not like, you're not listening to it. They're not like guys who are wearing their heart on their sleeves and like you're connecting with it emotionally necessarily, but it's just like, they're talking about that stuff through their instruments instead of the vocals. It's just like instrumentally and compositionally and arrangements. I mean, it's just like unparalleled to me in terms of pop music, like what they were getting away with. I say pop like as in the popular sense, not like Justin Bieber, which I like. I love that too. But
that's interesting. I'm gonna have to take a deep dive in this.
I can't believe that they were coming out with music at the same time as like Led Zeppelin and stuff, and people were like, "This band's also amazing." And like Reelin' in the Years is on the same radio station as, you know, like John Cougar Mellencamp or whatever. It's like, it was kind of like they were just somehow sneaking by playing super cerebral music. And I've always been like really fascinated by their ability to like pull that off somehow and be accepted in the mainstream is like, it's really remarkable. Like playing the Mu major chord, which is like an very unconventional sound that Donald Fagen like really leaned into on the keys. Like it's very, I think it's just very telling of like their genius that they were able to get people to accept. They truly are an example of like getting the mainstream to accept like a pretty fringe approach to art in general.
It sounds like you're describing also kind of like, but probably they had a little bit more success as Toto. Like those guys were all like ridiculous musicians. And they somehow hit this formula to have some songs that just, you know, still like every few years, Africa becomes a huge song again. Yeah. It's one of those songs that keeps having this cycle of like, but yeah.
I mean, I think anytime I'm always impressed, and this is my music nerd, and I try to separate from this as much as possible because I don't necessarily believe that it doesn't hold a lot of value in and of itself in terms of writing music, is like how complicated the structure can be. Like there has to be a catchiness or an inherent relatability to it. If you're out there and you're playing like even in a band like Tool, which is very complex and mathematical, right? It's still a very emotional experience to listen to their music. But anytime, I still am impressed as the music nerd creeps out of me, like Electric Feel or 15 Step by Radiohead, like any song that hits you with a weird time signature, and the average Joe is just like, I like this just as much as I like Four on the Floor dance music, it was a really impressive thing to pull off, to like find. Talking Heads were big into that, you know, the heavy syncopation and things like that. Like,
Well, yeah, and you take the Talking Heads, and they'd be on the same bill as the Ramones,
right.
and the Ramones are doing it as stripped down and as basic as possible, and hitting you, you know, equally emotionally,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
just in a different way.
Yeah. It's like it's a testament to like what I think is at the core of the whole thing. It's like, you got to feel it, and people have to feel something when they listen to it. But like, I've never been able to shake the fact that Electric Feel is this like global phenomenon song that's never gone away and probably never will. And it's in like, I think it's in like 6/4, you know, like there's 2 extra beats, like, and then it fully resolves with the full 8 beats, like leading into the chorus. And people at the festival are just like right on line with it, and they don't even know. So it's like, that's how good it feels.
Yeah.
Whether, you know, you don't even know that it's mathematical in any sense, which is like does
that come into play with you guys when you're writing music, or with you in general? Do you think of do you write a song going like, hey, I want to write a song on this weird time signature, or does it just happen?
It doesn't really happen actually for us anymore, and in a lot of ways, like decidedly, because our old band, and it was again like a pendulum swing back. Our old band was progressive, big time. It was like coming out of high school, we were big into like Rush and
Genesis and
Yes, big time, and just like how weird can this? And I really like Tool, and how odd can we make it? And you get to a point where you realize, like, you go play all these cities, we would get these great opportunities and play festivals. And the guy who would come up to us and tell us he loved our set was like, no offense to this guy, but like the dude who's like going bald, but still has the ponytail.
The skullet?
The skullet, yeah. And like, he's like in the 40-year-old version there when he's like, you have the Asia poster on your wall.
Yeah,
it's like that guy.
Yeah.
And he's coming up and he was like, I really love that part when it went from, you know, you switch time signatures. You guys were playing in 7 and the drummer was playing in 4. And then on the 28th beat, it lined back up and you switch back over to common time. It's like, that's like the lamest compliment to get after you play. Not like, I love that song or I can't wait to listen to it again. And it just kind of like was it's not inherently bad, but for us, there was a glass shatter where it was like,
you didn't want that to be,
I never want to get that compliment again.
Yeah.
You
You
know?
didn't want that to be the
reason that people are coming to see us, and we're not good enough to sustain like a band. Like if you look at like a heavy jazz band, like Snarky Puppy or something like that, where the technical prowess is of the level that it needs to be to sustain interest from the musician crowd, like the person who's there to be kind of taken to school in a way. And we have some level of technical ability, but not that level. So it was like, we're chasing a ghost at that point, you know, like you have to admit, like, that's not our strong suit. So
to get to that level, you guys would have to really dedicate a lot of individual time and practice.
And we already had, and we weren't there. So it's like,
you're like, how much more can I do?
Yeah.
At what point do you, where do you hit that fork in the road where it's just natural ability? Or as like Jordan Igo explained, it's just a gift, and how much of it is work ethic and like trying to achieve. And you get to that fork where like, yeah, you've worked as hard as you can. And the other part is the magic. Yeah. It might not be there for that specific thing, but
so it was just a collection of things like all at once where we were just like, you know what? And another big thing was like the era that we were in when we were just getting ready to finish college. 2013, 2014 was such a great year for contemporary music. Like Random Access Memories by Daft Punk came out, which was a huge influence on us. And going back to that, like Nile Rodgers, Chic, like dance 4 on the floor. I mean, there's definitely compositional elements to that album, but like they brought back that like almost disco sound on that just has permeated through since then. And the 2020 Experience by Justin Timberlake came out then, and you know, Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick Lamar was coming out, and we were looking at all these records, and like Modern Vampires of the City by Vampire Weekend. We're looking at all these records, and we're like, I want to do something like this. as
Yeah.
opposed to, and not that I'm going to write Kendrick Lamar songs, but as opposed to clinging to the yesteryear of Starship Trooper by Yes, like being our main influence. It was like, I'm just not the person anymore who likes that kind of thing either.
No, I get 100% what you're saying. Like, because there's a certain point, especially when you're a music nerd, you learn to play music, and you get into certain types of bands simply. Like when I was a kid, I loved Extreme, the band Extreme, that More Than Words band, because Nuno Bettencourt was like, you know, the next coming of Eddie Van Halen, and like the musicality of the guitar playing was so insane and crazy.
Right.
But then at a certain point I realized, okay, I enjoy this for this reason, but I also understand that, like, you know, that band is forever gonna be in the shadow of like the ballad that they blew up on, and none of their songs that were like so amazingly like He-Man Woman Hater is never going to become a radio hit single. It's never going to bring in the fans. It's not going to pay the bills. So at a certain point, you're like, okay, how do you grab all of that love that they have for that stuff and all the pop sensibility of that they also possess for you know, a ballad, and marry the two so that you can have something that people will, you know, that will strike a chord with people, that they will carry for the rest of their lives, and also be fun and inspirational to play. So is that kind of where Human Resources became like, okay, we still want to be really technically good, but we also really want people to sing along. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, our mission statement as a band, like for the first 2 years, basically, if we had one, was, you know, it's a 50 Cent song, and then it was quoted by Kanye West when he's like, 50 told me, go ahead and switch your style up, and if they hate, let them hate and watch the money pile up.
Yeah.
And Paul used to just want to punch me every time I would say that, because he'd be like, I don't want to just like do it because people are going to like it, or like it's not what they like about us. And we would just, every time we would just say that, and it would.
It's a great piece of advice though.
Yeah. It's like, who cares? You know, it's basically like a more eloquent way of saying like, kick the haters, like whatever, we want to do this new thing now.
Yeah.
But you know, we were listening to music like Phoenix and realizing like this is what, and like St. Vincent was a huge thing for us.
I love St. Vincent.
Yeah.
And I love that every album is now becoming, she's totally embraced the David Bowie kind of reinventing herself.
It's been going that way, I feel like. And I kind of feel like her last love letter, or her last record, was like the love letter to him in a lot of ways, like acknowledging like, I think you're the best, and I'm going to try to do the same thing, like conceptually, that you did. And like, I'm sending you off by basically saying that, admitting, you know, how much I love you, basically.
Without you, I don't exist.
Right. Yeah. Like
or David Byrne, which she collaborated with.
I listened to her song Exploder, where she talks about New York, that song. And I'm pretty sure that the chorus of that is like just like a heart rip, you know, I love David Bowie moment.
Yeah.
You know, which is cool. I love David Bowie too.
Yeah. But now her new stuff, the two singles she just released for her upcoming album, are so different than anything she's done before.
Yeah.
But it's still her.
Yeah.
You know? But I like that ability to for you guys to sit there and go like, you know what? Let's just, you know, put a stick in the spokes and do something a little bit more.
It's kind of like it got to a point where we were like, we like each other, you know, but we don't like the music that we're playing. So,
yeah, you get the reasons why you all came together and did all that stuff. You've done it now. Now it's time, like just like going out and recording in LA, or bringing in other creatives to influence and bounce off of. Yeah, that's pretty awesome that you guys have that self-awareness and the ability to just say, hey, you know what, we're going to do this now, and you know, in a year from now, we might not be doing that anymore, but this is what we're doing.
We give each other a really hard time in a good way. So I feel like it keeps us humble in that regard. Like, you know, making fun of the way shows sound live or whatever when Matt's running them. Like even when you said that before, and I was like, I don't know, really, you know, that's just kind of the way that we probably watched too much It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia when we were younger, and are like, you're supposed to just belittle your friends.
Oh yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. As a band of guys, like a true band of people that grew up together, how violent have the fights gotten within the band. Have you ever thrown an instrument at each other?
There's never been a
Never.
fight. No.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing that you guys have been that close for so long, and you have been mature enough not to lose control.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's like we all like playing Zelda and listening to music and, you know, watching Seinfeld as much as we like, and like drinking beer together as much as we like playing music together. So there's not a lot of ego. And because I think it's a benefit to it, everybody has their own outlets, that it's like, if I don't feel like my voice is being heard in this sense, like I can find another place to direct my energy for a while until I find the spark again. And somebody else will pick it up. Paul will go make a music video.
Exactly.
Or Dries will write a song or do whatever while we're sulking in our own defeat or whatever it is, you know?
I think that my experience with that kind of, the reason why I asked that is because my experience was those type of
I was going to
emotional those emotional conflicts would come in songwriting. When you were doing a song where you're collaborating, instead of not a song where you'd bring a song to the band and be like, hey, I wrote this song. It would be like, okay, let's just, you know, jam out on this riff, whatever it is. And just, and then you start working, and all of a sudden it starts turning into a song. And then one person would be like, hey, let's try this. And the other person would be like, no, it doesn't work. And that person gets really upset and angry. And like, you've just basically told them you suck. And then it turns into like yelling. And next thing you know, a bass guitar is flying across someone's room. And
it's like the movie, like announcer guy, like, this time it's personal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It was, but that's why I imagine with professional musicians, that never happens. But with kids growing up and like, they don't, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, I don't know. And that might've been more of a New York thing. Not knowing how to express yourself properly, so you just get violent.
It also, another way we've been like insanely lucky is with Matt being a producer essentially, or an aspiring producer and becoming a legitimate producer the whole time we've been a band. We have been his session band the whole time.
Yeah.
And you have to learn really quick, if you're going to be a session musician, to ditch your ego at the door.
Yeah.
Or you're never going to make it, because no one's going to want to work with you. If you come in and you try to, you know, push everybody out of the way and say, I'm here now, this is how it's going to be, and it's not even your song to begin with, that's going to be your last call for sure. And starting in that role at an earlier age, like with Matt, even just making songs in his bedroom, and it's, you know, X person who lives down the street who has an acoustic guitar and wants to make a song but needs bass and drums. He's calling us. We were able to, like, I think it was subconscious in a lot of way to like absorb, like knowing when to get out of the way in like a studio setting. That's helped us not like,
that's pretty
pull each other's hair out, you know?
That's an extremely mature, like, view on how to handle yourself with that. That's and I'm saying that like I'm not just
we're not mature at all. I don't want to be. I'm not put on airs.
Whatever human resources folks try to tell you about them being goofballs and no, they're professional musicians. they're highly respectable and respectful people.
Hear that, Mom?
That's no, but I'm not joking. I'm like, I can't even understand. Like that's so awesome. That's such a mature way to work with people that you grew up with.
Yeah.
That there's something, and maybe it's just a part of me that I need to fix, but there's something about the comfort level with somebody where you let your guard down, and sometimes you maybe open wounds or say things that can't be unsaid. It doesn't have to be physical, but sometimes like it's just like picking on somebody that you know, like they're sensitive about because you just want to hurt them because they didn't want to play the A chord. You know what I'm saying? Like that's such an immature way to deal with your creative process. But I
think it's important to get humbled too.
Yeah.
Like a lot as a band, and we do, like, I know one thing that, obviously during the pandemic, this has waned, but like we've always tried to like be really in touch with like what's going on in the Charleston scene, like Charleston and beyond. But like like actually listen. Like, don't be the person who's just like, I don't give a shit about what, you know, Crybaby or I can't even think, Babe Club or whatever Personal Ave is doing. Like, check it all out if it's happening and figure it out. And not stop there. Also, like, go to Monday Night Mash and watch like Roger Cliche and, you know, JT Rollerson, these like unbelievable players who are in Charleston who have toured the world with. I mean, Roger played with D'Angelo in the Vanguard, and he lives here and is playing for free at Mash on Monday night. Like, go to that show, and go. I don't even know what half the chords he played were. So, what gives me the right to like go into the studio and try to like shit on somebody else?
Yeah,
you know, because there's plenty of people out there who could shit on me all day long. But I was going to ask you. You played in a band, right? What's your? I don't know your story. You're the most fascinating character in this whole.
Well, no,
this whole thing. I don't even know where I am. I'm at some studio in
We've never really sat down and talked
in
at
Goose
all.
Creek. Like I just bought.
We're
a car.
Somerville. We're not quite Goose Creek.
Somerville, yeah,
on the other side.
I just bought a car last year. I left the peninsula for the first time last year. You know, so
I moved.
Give
here.
me some context.
Okay, I'll give you the Cliff's Notes version. So yeah, I grew up in New York, and I started to play guitar probably in around, like, I was in 8th grade, and a friend of mine who lived around the block from me, this guy Justin, he took guitar lessons, and he had an Ibanez, like with a Floyd Rose. Like, it was pretty intense for a young kid to have this cool guitar. But he also had this Area Pro 2 that was his first guitar that he didn't have anymore and he didn't need anymore. And he offered to trade it to me for my Game Boy, my brand new Game Boy that I had gotten for Christmas. And I was like, okay, well, I beat this game already. I'm done with Tetris, whatever. Traded him for this guitar, to my grandparents' dismay.
Yeah.
Who had to do whatever they had to do.
Yeah.
And kind of fell in love instantly with guitar, like playing hours and hours a day and learning how to play, and playing with that guy and some other friends. And then eventually there was another band in my town that played more like punk rock type stuff. And I ended up joining them as a singer.
Mm-hmm.
And that, that was my high school. Like, I did that all throughout high school. I played in that band. And to the point where when I came time to go to college, I went to like the first semester of college for graphic design, and dropped out so I could go on tour, because we were going to Germany to go play a tour there. And I was just like, yeah, now I got to go on tour. I'm going to just drop out of school. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what I did for many years until I met my wife. But I played in a punk rock band, and it was fun, but it was super. We were just dumbasses. That's the best part, right? Yeah, we were, looking back on it now, like we had so much passion and drive, and it got in our own way, because we, like I said, we would get into like fights with each other over stupid shit, because we didn't know what we were doing. We were just at heart, we're a bunch of kids that grew up in the same town and working class, middle class town. And that's, I eventually met my wife and got married and had kids, and we moved down here. And since then, I don't play in a band anymore. But all of that experience of playing in a band and touring, doing world tours, putting out records, getting signed, all that kind of stuff was all sorts of like insane for me at the time, because all I can think about is like, I traded my Game Boy for this Area Pro 2. I don't even think Area Pro 2 guitars exist anymore. I probably said the name of a guitar you've never heard of.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah. And you know what I'm saying? Like to go from that to like, next thing you know, I'm in Australia playing in the Warped Tour. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it was an interesting point in my life to get into, and this is all going on in the 90s. So punk rock is becoming huge. When Green Day hit, it was like all of a sudden people are showing up at shows, and that's when you're getting booked everywhere, and you're like, oh my God, what's going on here? This is nuts. Yeah. So that's kind of where I come from in the music scene, but it was all the hardcore and punk rock scene of New York. So we're my understanding of what a local music scene and what I see here. There's elements that I see here that are similar in the camaraderie of all of the people. The kind of, for us, it felt almost like an us versus them type of thing towards like the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
But here it's just, it feels like in Charleston, we have this awesome music scene, and it's not us versus them. It's us because no one else is coming here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like we're so off the touring grid for every band.
Charlotte to Atlanta, and
it goes Atlanta, Charlotte,
here,
and South Carolina is just like who?
Right.
And so you're kind of like, all right, well, but the music scene that's here is so healthy and just wonderful and inspiring to me, because it feels like when I was a kid, because all the shows were put on at like VFW halls, because normal music venues aren't booking hardcore shows.
Right.
So everything had to be handled by the kids, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
Everything was done DIY style. So I'm kind of seeing elements of that now. It's just, there's the technology and everything's changed. But, you guys are also, when I say you guys, I mean the generation of people that are playing in this scene right now are just way better musicians than I could have ever possibly imagined. And just, you're on a level of maturity that makes it so that you're not imploding constantly.
I think that, the heightened visibility has a lot to do with that in both ways, in terms of like being expected to be a little more mature. Like you have to, people, I'm even on the top end of this spectrum, I feel like, but like so many people's lives everything is broadcast now.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like,
and it's permanently there.
And you don't want to look like an idiot when you're on the internet forever.
Yeah.
Maybe you do. Maybe that's your thing. Which a lot of people do that, and it's kind of awesome too for everyone else's entertainment. But like, I also think you were saying like the generation being stronger musicians and things like that. Like you come up with viral videos. I used to think of as like Victor Wooten, like shredding the bass, was like playing Amazing Grace was like a viral thing, which that wasn't, you're not getting the 8-minute bass solo on the radio that you're getting on YouTube.
Right.
Or getting served up like the YouTube recommendation of you watch, maybe I'm younger and I really like the Mars Volta or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, I like this like prog shit. And they're like, oh, okay, well then you might like Rush, and then I watch that. And then you go down the line and it's like, okay, well you might like Zappa. And it's like, okay, well now I'm in this whole other world in 4 clicks than I would have ever been served before. So
you didn't have to go to the music store,
right,
to the record store, and have the guy behind the counter give you this knowledge. You could find it yourself. So you're not dependent on this guy having good taste in music, you know what I'm saying? Or steering you in the right direction and really getting you, because you've got an algorithm basically saying, oh, you like this? Check this, and this. And then you can pick and choose, and it doesn't cost you your allowance to get it. You could just play it.
And people can just like show the fuck out in 15 seconds on their Instagram. Now, like Jacob Collier, or like, I think it's Tom Mish. I'm not sure how to say his last name. Like these players that are just insane. And they're like, here's 15 seconds of me being a badass. And you look at it while you're in the bathroom, and so you're being influenced. I know it's funny. It's like they're influencers, but in music, like you're being pushed constantly, and there's a lot of negative consequences. With,
I was about to say that's
like with you could be defeated really easily, and I think that's you see
why
that,
try? I'm never gonna be as good as that person.
You see that a lot more, and obviously like that's what has led to social issues, body image,
anxiety,
anxieties and things like that for sure. But I mean, you are getting pushed to be better. You're like, oh damn, like look at that, what that guy can do. Still, I'm 30 years old and I'm seeing people on, Instagram reels being like, damn, I still have to get better. I can't get complacent. So it goes both ways.
Yeah. Well, it to me, the music scene right now is in a really cool place because of all of those things. You have a rise of people understanding like the unique abilities they have that might not be technically as good. You know, I'm going to say it again. I think if anyone's playing the JWN podcast drinking game, prepare yourself. But you have someone like Phoebe Bridgers.
Oh yeah.
Who 100%.
I'm playing the drinking game.
Yes.
I don't know if you heard
there
that.
You go.
He said Phoebe Bridgers.
Oh, we just said it 2 more times.
Yeah.
But she taps into an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
No, beyond her playing, songwriting, and singing abilities, her ability to connect with people on an emotional level is now to me, it's the reason why she's gained so much success in the last year, because she's really struck a chord at the right time with people to help them connect with someone and say, yes, that sound that's coming out of my speakers is how I feel. Like beyond just the words, just the emotion is there. And so I feel like there's a lot of music coming out now that is able to harness that, because you're not going to compete. She's not going to out-sing Celine Dion or something,
Alicia Keys or
Alicia
whatever.
Keys, yeah. So but to capture a certain personality that's uniquely hers and put it out there. And I think, from what you've described with human resources, it seems like that's kind of maybe without saying it that way, that's kind of the pivot. You're like, let's play what we want to feel and hear, as opposed to like trying to challenge ourselves technically.
There was this math teacher at my high school, and I always remember thinking, I've thought since he said this, and still to this day, that this could just end so badly, that this was his advice. But you can't help but take it to heart. He would always go, if it feels good, do it.
Yeah. And
he's telling this to a bunch of 15-year-olds who are like, it would feel good to steal beer out of my neighbor's garage and, go to somebody's lake house.
It feel good to show up to school, right? Like high as a kite.
Yeah, late and high, whatever. But he would just say that, and like it's hard not to take it to heart. It's especially when you're playing. It's like, what really is the threshold at any point? It's like, well, it felt good when we did that, so we should do that again.
Yeah, but the feel good comes with also, you got, like, again, not to beat a dead horse, but this level of maturity that you guys have and respect for each other. Again, we started talking about the level of respect that something like this pandemic has taught people. And
you have to love it. I mean, you just have to love it as like a craft. You just have to see it that way. Like, if you don't, like, even we will get caught up in it, and it's like, it's a means to an end. It's a means to get it in a commercial or whatever. And it's like, at the end of the day, we just like drinking beer in the studio and making songs. And at the end of the song, gassing each other up and telling each other how sick it was. You know, like, it's That's still awesome. That at the end of the day, Well, you mind playing a song for us real quick? I'll give it a shot.
Let's give it a shot.
I'll give it a shot.
All right, let's take a break. And we'll do the magic of podcasting, and you guys will just hear a song in a second. So, what song you want to play here?
I'm gonna do the song Sylvia. Have you ever seen that movie MacGruber?
Yeah.
That like make fun of
the MacGyver. Yeah.
And he's like, "There's a big difference between winging it and seeing what happens. So let's see what happens."
All right.
Let's see what happens.
All right. Cool.
Tripping over everything she said. And all the efforts that were made half-hearted, they all sounded so much better in my head. The rain won't stop, the car won't start, and you're next door, but it feels so far apart. Tune it out, try to get some rest and forget about it.
Dude. I think we need to stress the fact that you don't normally play guitar for that song.
No, I don't play guitar in this band, actually.
Exactly. Yeah. You like, holy cow.
Reese is way better than me, man.
That's pretty that's pretty intense, man. Holy cow. I'm turning some of this reverb down so that we're not swimming in here. Man. Well, that worked out really well.
That was okay. Yeah, that felt pretty good.
Yeah. It sounded great.
Maybe I should do it again. Maybe I should go solo.
I'm telling you, you can do the solo acoustic tour. Hold on a second. Let me put this guy on here. Oh, we're putting our condom back on the mic so that it cuts down on the
ASMR.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah, man, that sounded awesome. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
What was the what was the inspiration for that song?
Well, so the funny thing about that song was like, that now is what I guess people would consider to be our most popular song. It's our number one Spotify, whatever. Excuse me, I'm in here burping because we're drinking beer at 11:30 in the morning. Biggest faux pas in the biz, man. Burping into the mic. We were getting ready to go to California the first time, and we sent a bunch of demos out to Taylor Locke, who's our producer out there, and he picked what was an instrumental of that song with nothing else to it.
Really?
And I was kind of like, and it wasn't even a full instrumental, it was just my demo of it. And I was kind of panicking because, you know, this guy at the time, he still is, I don't know how to say it like that, but he was like a childhood kind of hero of mine that we were getting the chance to work with. I was like, man, he's going to put me on the spot. I'm going to have to like write the melody and the lyrics and all that in front of him. And the night before we got on the plane to go out there, we actually, I've never told the story before, so this is a JWN podcast exclusive. We've kind of tried to keep a lid on this.
Wow.
I didn't have a hook for the song, and there was this cat in our neighborhood that we would feed it on our front porch, and we called it Holyfield because it had part of its ear tagged like a Evander Holyfield when Mike Tyson bit his ear off. What a weird time that was.
I get that though.
But we found out that the neighbor had also been feeding the cat, and that they called it Sylvia. And that gave me the idea for the name. And I had the verses written. The verses were just about like a bad day that I'd had. Any other song where like we'd played a show at Rec Room, and I'd left my car there, and it was pouring down rain. And then I went to get it, and it wouldn't start. And it was like this whole thing. And it was just like a very in the moment writing about this thing that had only happened like a week before, but not having the hook. And they were like, we've been feeding this cat. We call it Sylvia. And Matt and I were just joking. We were like, whose side are you on, Sylvia? Like,
yeah.
And that was you know, it's such a silly thing, but it translated to like other experiences, you know, of like, at the end of the day, you know, you don't really know what people are doing when they go out, and then they come home, and it's like,
yeah, it sounds like a love triangle type of.
A little bit, yeah. But heavily influenced by a neighborhood cat. So at least the name is where that came from.
You need to let people know that Sylvia is about a cat.
I think it's like
it will become the most popular song.
It's peaked on its growth trajectory. It's really
so far.
So far, yeah. I mean, I say that because like the song that was in the commercial that we were talking about before was that was the first song we ever made as a band.
That was Queen?
Yeah.
So that song, that was the first song as a band.
That was our first HR song ever.
Wow.
And we don't even play it live anymore. And it was just like sitting on the back burner. And 4 years later, they were like, yeah, we pitched this. Basically, the way those things go is they make the commercial and they submit it to the client with like 10 songs.
Right.
And it ranges from Bruno Mars, probably who's going to be $1 bajillion to be in it, to Human Resources, who you can pay in exposure points and you know some monopoly money. And it had been pitched. Queen had been pitched many times. Sylvia's been pitched, and like that's such a weird process to be a part of. But nothing had ever hit. Sylvia, funny enough, was supposed to be the closing. It was in the running with one other song to be the closing credits song in The Purge 2. which I don't know if that song that you just listened to, where like the suspension of law and order in America and like murderous rampages have to do with that, but it almost was the one that got away.
The Purge, or as I like to refer to it as the QAnon wet dream.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Queen was just a song, like we didn't even play it anymore. It was sitting on the back burner, and we got the message from the marketing company. They were like, they want to use this one. So here's the contract if you want to give it up. And we did, because especially like
you guys like, yeah, well, fuck that song anyway.
Yeah, we were talking before about like, you know, artistic integrity or whatever of putting your song in a commercial, but it was really like, you know, I don't really give a shit about that song anymore anyway. So it was like, we can, you know, put it to work. We might as well, right?
I mean,
it's a good song. I'm not trashing it. It's just
no, but there's a feeling of like something, so work you did a long time ago, and then somebody's offering you like a pile of cash for something you worked on a long time ago. Like what? There's not a lot of industries where that happens, you know?
It was 5 years old.
Yeah.
When they picked it. So it was really cool to like, and probably the most full circle thing about it was when we made it, we lived in this house on James Island when we first moved here for like 6 months. It was infested with mold. We literally had to pack up our stuff and move out in the middle of the night because the landlord like would not help us.
There.
Well, no, he wanted us to stay.
Oh.
But he kept just being like, he was putting these industrial humidifiers in the house. And eventually our house, it just looked like a construction site. And we were like, we have to get out of here. So we packed up and moved in the middle of the night. But anyway, we had a little studio in the upstairs bedroom there, and we recorded it. And we would just always be like, this song's going to be in a car commercial. This sounds like it should be in a car commercial. Doesn't this sound like it should be in a car commercial? Are we being lame because it sounds like it should be in a car commercial? Have we jumped the shark? You know, because it's so car commercial, and would like kind of rip on that. And then like, sure enough, 5 years later, Nissan was like,
hey, this song sounds like it should be in one of our car commercials.
Yeah. And then, so that happened. And then Dries actually went and bought a Nissan. So they got their money back in the long run. They got the last laugh, you know.
I love that. No, that's pretty awesome.
So when you see him cruising around in his Xterra, just know it's
I used to have an Xterra.
It's the car commercial money, just putting it right back into the machine, you know?
Wow. I had an Xterra years ago. The Xterra was a cool car.
It is a cool car.
I mean, I was a huge fan, but then, yeah.
I don't know shit about cars. I'm not like a car guy at all.
Oh, then I think we went to a minivan after that. For a very short period of time, we were a minivan family when our kids were both young enough where we had 2 strollers. It was just like, this makes sense.
You have 2 kids?
I have 2 kids, yeah. But they're...
How old are they?
You ready for this?
You had them when you were very young?
My oldest daughter is 21, and my son is 17. Yeah. He was taking an AP literature test this morning, so I had to wake up at 7 o'clock to drive him into school because he's been virtually schooling this year.
AP Lit.
But he had to go. Yeah, so he had to go in person for these AP tests. Yesterday he had math.
So he's a senior in high school?
Junior. He's a junior.
Junior.
He'll be a senior, in the fall. But
cool.
Yeah, what a weird time. Like I have to try and understand what these kids are going through at junior in high school is the hardest year, academically,
for sure.
And to be doing that like kind of on your own, I have a lot of like
takes a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
Just to give a shit.
Right.
Like I would have a very hard time.
And he's in like a bunch of AP class. He's a smart kid. Yeah. So he's in like these AP classes. So that's like a college credit that he's taking these tests for.
Right.
And it's pretty intense, but they're both great kids.
And you're sitting there and it's like the PlayStation 5 is like the one ring from Lord of the Rings just like pulsing at you to not care. About your schoolwork.
He's funny.
That would be me at least.
He's got a PlayStation that's covered in dust. He's not a big console gamer, but he's a huge PC gamer. So the fact that he's doing his schoolwork on the same thing that he does like all of his gaming.
It's a couple clicks away, man.
There's been plenty of times during the day I'll walk in and like he'll minimize a screen and the old joke about a teenage boy minimizing a screen.
I was just about to say
It's
that
not.
same thing.
It's not that. It's a video game.
Pull it up and it's like League of Legends or something. And you're
Or
like-
he's reading fantasy. Like he loves fantasy books. So and he'll read like fan fiction fantasy books.
We'd probably get along.
Yeah, he's huge into just he reads books like I can't understand how fast he can read. Like the comprehension he has of like reading a book.
Yeah.
Like a 500-page fantasy novel in like a couple of days. And I'm like, how do you do that? Like I would fall asleep.
Where does he want to go to school?
He doesn't know yet. He's still kind of he's got a lot of options.
Is he trying to stay close to home, or figuring it out?
I don't know. I think it all will depend on next year when he goes and visits places. And and also I think he's got a couple of close friends. He's got a small friend group that are similar types of kids like him. And they're all kind of also band geek. Like he plays violin, and all his friends play string instruments. So like it's pretty interesting. We'll see where they end up going as well. But
I think back to when I was looking at colleges. I told my family is from Michigan. I'm a first generation Southerner. I don't know if I give you a super Southerner vibe.
No, not at all.
But I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina, and when I was getting ready to go to college, I went to a Catholic high school, very conservative, and I would just be like, I am not going anywhere south of the Mason-Dixon line. You are crazy. Like I'm not going any further south than I am right now. My parents brought me to tour CFC, and I was like, you must be out of your mind. I will never live there. And now I'm here.
Yeah. Now my daughter goes to CFC.
Yeah.
She went to a semester at Pratt up in New York, and then just kind of.
That's pretty rad, though.
She part of it she loved. The other part of it she didn't. Just being in a beautiful place in Brooklyn, like but having no real money because you're going to school full time.
Yeah.
You can't really hold a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
So she's like, this is really oppressive.
Mm-hmm.
So and half the kids in her class were dropping out and things like that. It was a weird environment for her to be in. And then when she transferred to College of Charleston, I think she's doing really well.
Did you go get drinks with her yet? Now that she's 21?
Oh yeah, the night.
Is that weird or is that cool?
It's not weird at all. Like because I mean we're pretty. We're a pretty easygoing household. So she's, whenever we're at any kind of function together, we didn't care if she had some drinks as long as we knew, like, okay, she's not driving, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff.
Right.
I'd be kind of hypocritical if I said, you can't drink at all. So, when she's like 18 or 19.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a big shock. It was just nice to be able to go out in public to a restaurant and have her order something and get ID'd and
that's cool.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we went out for her 21st birthday and it was fun.
My first beer with my parents was at Outback Steakhouse.
Are you kidding me?
In McDonough, Georgia. Because they live in Atlanta now.
Yeah.
Or outside of Atlanta. And I got a frosty pint of Foster's. I don't even think I liked it.
Right.
But I had to, this is who I am.
You
now.
have to get a Foster's.
Yeah.
Which the Foster's here tastes nothing like Foster's it's way more bitter.
In Australia?
In Australia, yeah. They love bitter beer in Australia.
That funk. I always think of that like European funk, that like green bottle, like the Carlsberg or whatever, the European beer. I like that stuff. Stella. That's good stuff.
I love German beer it's a wonderful thing because you could just drink a ton of it and not feel hungover.
Yeah.
There's something pure about that. Those German purity. Those
are
Germans
you,
are
you German?
My name is German. My last name is German, but I'm a mutt.
Okay.
Mostly European stuff though, but it's German is the name.
I wonder if it's like you drink your own the product of your homeland. You don't get hungover as much.
Can you imagine?
I should probably drink some German beer. I'm super German. If you couldn't guess by my last name, it's very bizarre. Like it was definitely like whoever it was in my family got to Ellis Island and it had a umlau and all kinds of stuff. And they were like, no, we don't do that, like, which is funny with HR because we're pretty basic, like looking squad of guys, but everybody is like we definitely have the weirdest last names on paper. If you had looked at us, you're like, where's this band from? Like Zutel, Utterback, Kelmus, and then Vandenberg is the most normal, but Dries is the most exotic person because he was born in Japan. So it's like,
yeah, I don't even know what his nationality would be because he's got darker skin.
You'll have to have him on here to explain it fully, but his dad is just like an American guy, and his mom is Japanese.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had
and
no idea.
he was born in I don't want to get it wrong. Takamatsu, Japan, and lived there for a while.
Wow. So he speaks Japanese. This is going to turn into the.
I think he's how much do I know about him? We've been friends for like 15 years. I should know more. He didn't, but I think he's learning again, as far as I know. He's learning now. He's like figuring it out again. But he was, you had friends who were from wherever in high school, and like their mom would come in the room and just like start ripping at him in Japanese, and he would reply in English, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. In my band, two of the guys their families were both, first generation Czech. Well, back then it was Czechoslovakia, now it's Czech Republic. But, I lived with one of those guys for years.
Yeah.
And the parent and I started picking up on it because the parents would speak in Czech,
mm-hmm.
and there were certain phrases and things where I just knew what they were saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just, you'd understand what they were saying. You get used to it after a while. But
it would remind me of that like Lost in Translation scene. Have you seen where the director talks to him and like talks to him forever, and then the translator's like, he's saying, "Look at the camera," and Bill Murray's like, "That's all he said." He'd come in and his mom would go for like 2.5 minutes, and then he'd be like, "Dinner's ready."
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, well, she probably said 15 other things, but the gist of it was dinner was ready.
Yeah, it's probably like, your band sounds like shit. Can you turn it down? He just protected us from that or whatever. But we used to practice at his house in middle school. He was the hub. We lived close to where we went to school, so it was like we could go over there and cause trouble in the afternoons. So I actually knew him before. I met him in middle school, and then Matt came in high school. He joined the squad. And Paul came in college. So we've slowly just like become this amorphous blob of like
human resources.
Do you want to be a part of this weird thing that we do?
Wait, which one of you guys had the brother that you named the band after originally?
That was Dries.
Dries' brother?
Was Danny, and we were going to be called Danny Dies a Horrible Death.
That's harsh, man.
And we changed it because of his brother. So we were Donnie Dies. And then we were like, that stuck weirdly. It was never intended to be the case. But we were like, we started getting asked to play all these like jam band festivals in college. And we were like, all right, I guess this is who we are now. It was funny. We will definitely have the, I don't know if anybody will have kids or when or whatever, but there'll be the, oh my God, look at dad in college with his super long hair and the whole deal. So we've at least done that. We've at least looked ridiculous enough in the past that people will get joy looking back at how funny we've looked probably at some point. So I think that's the whole point, right? Can you look back at yourself and be like, I looked like an idiot, but that was pretty fun.
Dude, there's a picture of me playing one of the first shows I ever played. I'm wearing these from like a head shop. I must have gotten them. They're like 3/4 length pants. This is the 90s. So I looked very appropriate, but they've got like purple pot leaves all over them.
Yeah.
And they're like hemp. So they're like that canvas material.
Yeah. Oh,
and then a flannel shirt because it was the 90s. Long hair, curly long hair, but I would shave it around the sides and the back, but it was long enough to still come down to my shoulders. Nice. And it was like dyed blue or something like that. It's just, I mean, I look like a cartoon of like, 1993.
You were the guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome though. I mean,
those things exist.
That's a fun feeling to have though, like, yeah, I like that whole kind of thing. Like, here's a picture of us seeing, we went to the All Good Music Festival in West Virginia to watch the surviving members of the Grateful Dead, like that kind of thing. You know, we did that. We were there, and it was amazing. Which I also love the Grateful Dead. I'm not like that's not making fun of those people.
Oh no, you can make fun of them because I'm okay with that. Simply because we had this thing in our band where we hated the Grateful Dead. I didn't personally care. I was like neither here nor there. But like one of the guys who was the original or one of the original singers, he for some reason had this chip on his. You know, he just hated the Grateful Dead. Like hated it. But he hated Grateful Dead fans more than he hated the Grateful Dead.
You know, that happens to bands.
So he wrote a song that we had, and I was just like, it's tongue in cheek, but whatever. It was a little, but called "I'm Not You," about not being a fan of the Grateful Dead, and
oh man,
it was stupid. It was a stupid song, and it wasn't too hurtful. It was tongue in cheek, but yeah.
Well, I'm sure they.
But I always laugh about it because now it's
in the words of Don Draper from Mad Men, I'm sure they had a hard time sleeping at night on their beds made of money.
Oh yeah. Well, no. There was actually there was a line in it about them counting all their money, laughing at all the sheep. Yeah, he was trying to be all like, well, you know.
I like to think that that's not true because I love the Grateful Dead.
Right.
It could be.
But I remember as a teenager,
they've sold a lot of stickers. I'll put it that way.
I used to work with these two twin hippies.
Yeah.
Tom and Roland. I wish I could find these guys because I can't remember their last name.
Roland is a like I follow the Grateful Dead around the country name.
Dude, these guys looked like they were just awesome. They had bongos. They were the nicest guys. And I imagine I could probably figure it out how many twins, you know, are named Tom and Roland that are into the Grateful Dead. I don't know. Maybe one day somebody listening to this will be like, I know those guys, they used to go on Ricky Lake all the time and come up with premises to be on there.
Oh yeah,
because they would just like everybody on those shows, like Jerry Springer and all that stuff back in the day. Mm-hmm. It was all phony, like just people goofing off and making up some weird white trash story to get on it. Not all of it, I'm sure.
Sounds pretty fun though.
Yeah, but they would do that stuff. They were always trying to get on those shows. And they would do it too. But anyway, they bought me a ticket to go see the Grateful Dead because they were like, dude, we know you don't like the Grateful Dead.
You saw Jerry?
Hold on. This is in the 90s now. We know you don't like the Grateful Dead, but we feel like if you go see them live, you'll have a totally different experience. You'll understand it. I was like, I am down to do anything. Yeah. You know, like whatever. I'd love to. So they got me a ticket. And Jerry Garcia died. I'm sorry, everybody.
Oh, no.
It might be Tom and Roland's fault for trying to get me to go see the Grateful Dead, and I never got to see the Grateful Dead. Unfortunately,
it was like 95 or 94, whenever that was.
Yeah, it was right around. It was the middle, and was it 95?
That's maybe? So sad. You're so close
or something. Yeah,
I would love to have seen Jerry.
Yeah, it was like the tour was, you know, that the year he died. It was just like, it was a weird situation. Be like, I guess I'm not going to see them now. That's a little uncomfortable. But I never did get into, like, I've tried to. There's certain bands of that genre that I love. Pink Floyd.
Yeah,
I've seen Pink Floyd live. I didn't need to see them live to understand how good they were. But even after seeing them live, it was just like, holy
for sure.
Like, this is a game changer.
Right. I have two things. First, the best YouTube comment I've ever seen was about David Gilmour.
Oh, yeah.
It's still my favorite. I like took a screenshot of it and like have it saved in my screenshots. It was like somebody who was like, is David Gilmour the best guitar player ever? No. But can David Gilmour play the best guitar solo ever? Yes. And I was like, this is pretty accurate. Like, that's a good thing. The other thing I don't even know if they would turn up their noses at me for saying this, but during the pandemic, I have a really funny Grateful Dead story if we haven't gone for 8 hours or whatever. Ross Bogan, who's a great musician in town and a good friend of mine, and we share a studio space. He was he got asked by Relics magazine to do a tribute to Bob Weir for his 75th or 76th birthday, whatever it was. Or so he thought, a tribute. So he gets really excited. He calls me up. He's like, we need a vocalist. here's this Grateful Dead song that I want you to sing and play the bass with me and Wallace Mullinax, who plays, amazing guitar player in town, who plays with The Reckoning at their Dead on the Deck on Wednesday nights at the Poorhouse. Just gem of a human too. But we go over to Fairweather Studio, and they're like, Ross sends me this song 2 days before. I've never heard this song. It's like a major, major deep cut.
Yeah.
And I like and follow know the Grateful Dead well. And I was like, what is this? And it's this like long episodic like tale of like, it's a Bible story that's been adapted, and we go through all this trouble, and I just like cram like I crammed for tests in high school. Like I haven't done this in years. And he gets Dries to come shoot this video, and we go do this video, and it turns out awesome. We're so excited for it. And he sends it into Relics, and the guy from Relics sends him a message back, and he's like, dude, this is so cool, but all you were supposed to do was say happy birthday on camera.
Oh my goodness.
So we went through this whole thing, and then we were like, well, damn, that sucks, because we got this cool video, and we're like, we're going to put it out on our own. And we get this message back not that long after that, like, a day later, and he's like, actually, hold on, like, don't release it yet, hold on. Later that day, we get a text from him, and he's like, I'm going to put it on the thing, like, to the tribute. We're going to have the tribute. We'll put you on it at this hour. Like, we're going to slip it in. It's cool. This is really well done. We're stoked on this. The next day, the lineup comes out, and I'm looking at it, and it's like, John Mayer, Aaron Dessner from The National, Aaron Utterback, and Ross Bogan. And then like Oteil Burbage, the bass player for the Allman Brothers, and now Dead and Company, and Trey Anastasio from Phish. And we're on at 2:30 or whatever it is. I can't remember what time. And we go look at the lineup, and it literally is the Grateful Dead 50th anniversary with Trey Anastasio from Phish filling the role of Jerry, Aaron Utterback and Ross Bogan, and then John Mayer.
That's unbelievable.
And it was because we misunderstood the assignment.
And
and we ended up getting put on this lineup, and now we have it like framed because it's like us with all these huge names,
Oh yeah.
Or getting it framed for our office.
And from what I understand of like the like real like super nerdy Deadheads, if you pulled out some obscure song and played it like that, you probably got lifelong fans.
It's the most favorable YouTube comment section I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
Like, and it's funny too, because all the people are like, these guys must be true Deadheads pulling out this deep cut. And I'm like, I had never heard the song before in my entire life. But it was awesome. And it was a super fun experience too. So now I'm like forever indebted to the
whole Grateful Dead community
for embracing my weird off the wall misunderstood homework assignment. But that was probably the highlight of the pandemic for me, honestly, was this video. It's My Brother Esau is the name of the song. You can check it out.
I will have to check it out.
It's really fun. And it's these guys who are all way better than me at playing. John Peace on the drums, like these like stalwart shredder guys, and then me somehow in there.
Well, I think I've said this plenty of times on this podcast, but this scene, the musicians around here, and then just the general thing that y'all have going on.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it could blow up at any second, like in a good way, in a Seattle in the 90s type of way or something like that. You know what I'm saying? I feel like somebody is going to break out of here.
We're lacking a little bit of infrastructure. That's the biggest hurdle, I would say, like in terms of, and I know like labels are in decline and stuff like that, but if you're in LA or New York or whatever, and it's like, there is the manager, there is the publisher, or Nashville, there is the record label or the licensing company. They're all down the block. Like that is a hurdle that Charleston will have to overcome.
Guess
Everybody
what?
knows it.
They're all moving here.
That's true.
There's so many people coming from,
especially New
the
York.
West Coast and New York.
Yeah.
My wife is a real estate agent, and the amount of people coming from, New York and California right now, it's pretty intense. But you have to imagine like the tech boom here. When I first got here 16 years ago, there was nothing.
Right.
It was there was like one company that's still here, but now there's tech centers. There's
Right.
a whole lot now there because it's a wonderful place, and once people notice, they, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just a great place. Now, if you could just tell the people booking tours that we exist,
right,
and hey, we've got these great venues that hopefully will survive through all this stuff. It seems like most of them will. To some degree, but like we have these venues, we have the infrastructure here, you know,
and the fans too. I mean, are here like
exactly
and very enthusiastic compared to
thirsty.
It's an easy sell to get people to go to a show in Charleston relative to Atlanta. I mean, it's like, and I probably a lot of it comes down to like access. It's just like there's not as much to do, so you go to the thing that is the thing to do is go to the Ben Bridwell solo show at Bay Street Beer Garden or whatever, you know. Whereas in Charlotte, it's like, or Atlanta, there's the Falcons game,
right,
that same day, which we don't have, and it's like, so it's a perfect balance. It's like a very delicate but perfect balance of like there's supply, there's demand, but there's also not as much like community competition. It's like, and one of the first things that stood out to me when I moved to Charleston, and still does to this day, is like, and I've been here for 6 years now, people from Charleston just fucking love shit that comes from Charleston.
They do.
You know, like it's like the food here. You talk to people from Charleston, and I've never been anywhere where it's like, we have the best food, we have the best looking people, we have the best music, you know, and that's how that people really like internalize that, and it comes back out in terms of like passion for your where you live, and that's a really beautiful thing, I think.
Yeah,
and it's very sincere here too. It's not forced, and it's not rallied around a sports team or a politician. It's rallied around arts and community and food and local business and nightlife and also obviously a ton of horrible things have happened here too in our history. Right. So it's like the internalization of that and acknowledgement of that is like, it does add it's another component to being here, and it's like makes it
it's got a rich history. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's the easy way
There's
to
just,
put it.
it has a rich history. To put it in the fewest amount of words as possible, rich history. But it's, there's just something unique also to this area, and it's familiar enough that it's not like a jarring uniqueness, but when you pay attention, you start to kind of like see it
right
through everything, through the art, through the music, through like I really feel like there's a low country vibe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of little pockets too. Like you can be pleasantly surprised by an indie rock band at Royal American, or you can be get your world rocked by whoever's improving at Bar Mash on Monday night.
Right.
You know, which is like, that's a New York City type. You could stumble into a place where, okay, I went to, Rockwood 1 or whatever, and Jamie Cullum or whoever like came up through there. It's like, I think he's British, but like, the drummer from A$AP Rocky is playing it, at MASH on Monday night. It's like, and that's happening in Charleston, which per capita is.
And the people walking
absurd.
by have no idea what they're seeing. Like the tourists walking by.
Like we heard this was a cool whiskey bar.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So it's a really special place to be. And to not try to, anytime you live somewhere for a really long time, especially when you're transient like a musician, it's easy to get jaded and be like, well, I go to Philly and it's exciting, or I go to Detroit and it's exciting. And what does Charleston really have? But it actually, it has had a lot in the past, and it still, I think, really has a lot to offer, even in its transition that it's definitely in right now into being a big city. Like,
yeah, it's growing in a weird way.
It's
a little nerve-wracking.
It's nerve-wracking. Yeah. I live downtown, like, and again, I've been downtown for 5 years, and it's like, to me, it looks like a completely different city. And then I just try to think about, if you grew up on Sanssouci and your great grandma owned that house, and now you wouldn't even know what you're looking at anymore, which is a wild thing to think about. So, but it's exciting. It's all part of the thing. So,
all right, let's do a little wrap up here. Let's talk about number one, the immediate future for you in human resources. You got some shows coming up, obviously, that are for all the various projects. I think we kind of touched on that earlier. But for people who are interested, what's the best place to go to find all the information about you and human resources?
I would say just we live mostly through Instagram. I mean, we have a website, but I mean, if you want to read about the City Paper Award we won in 2015, you can go there, I guess. But if you want to see what we're up to, it's just Instagram at HR the Band is the
at HR the Band.
Yeah, that's the place to be. We're playing a show on May 29th at Lo-Fi Brewing with Babe Club, Persona La Ave, and Jamie Gray from Crybaby.
Awesome.
It's going to be a great show. And we're working on a new record.
Yeah, the new record. When is that? Tentatively.
Hopefully we'll be dropping some new music before the end of the year with the record coming in early 2022, I would think.
That's exciting.
But stuff before, a couple surprises along the way before that comes out, and then some formal releases as well.
You guys are no you're no stranger to the collab. You did the Little Stranger collaboration.
That was a really
that's a whole other thing.
No stranger to the collab.
Yes, we like that. Yeah. I was thinking of a word to say, and I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm just diving right in.
Sometimes you just have to.
Yeah. I was like, what other word? No. Yeah. Fuck.
I should ask them if they're going to be here when we play our show. John and Kev, if you're listening, if you're going to be in town on the 29th, we should do some Human Stranger stuff at the show on
at Lo-Fi.
At Lo-Fi, yeah. I don't know if they'll be here, but
yeah, those guys are busy as all can be.
Yeah, we just came off the road with them. We did a run with them 2 weeks ago, and it was amazing.
That's just awesome, man.
Yeah,
I'm excited for everything that's coming up. But you guys are just a constant here in various forms, individually and as a band, and it's been an awesome highlight or color musically to the indie rock kind of scene here. Like the sound that you guys have is just is wonderful.
We're very proud to be here and be a part of it. It's our privilege for sure.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Forget what you taught.
before you get going, don't forget to subscribe to the show if you haven't already. And also, you can check out more at jwnpod.com or follow me on Instagram at JoeLatex. That's at JOEL8X. Have a great day. Peace!